Okay, right, everybody. So today is the first in what is hopefully going to be an interesting series of chats with me, with people throughout our industry, talking about anything estate agency related, really. Some of it, quite a lot of it, will be lettings and property management orientated. Quite a lot of it will be tech orientated. But the idea is just really for me to bounce some ideas around with some amazing people in our industry, have a bit of a debate and discussion, and hopefully kind of encourage you guys to have a little think about some of the topics that we're talking about and engage with those. So without further ado, I'm joined by the fabulous Siân Metcalfe. Hi, darling.
Hello, lovely to see you.
So Siân, just quickly, for those who don't know you, what is your role at InventoryBase?
Oh, right. Okay. So officially titles, Operation Director for InventoryBase and Property Inspector UK. However, I often refer to myself as a bit of a gap filler, mainly because you will know, as I do, you know, when you're working in, especially in a SaaS company and also one that's growing exponentially, there's so many jobs that you just kind of get involved with. And I like fingers in pies. I like to kind of figure out what the hell's going on with the rest of the company, you know, who's doing what and how I can best help and support them. Because with my background, I've managed a lot of people and managed a lot of processes and projects. So hopefully that will then help bring the diversity into our company, so that you know, we can get the best out of our team and give the best to our customers.
Brilliant. And just roughly how long have you been involved with kind of lettings, inventories, that kind of general wheelhouse?
Right, so I can actually be very descriptive. So I've actually been involved since 2012. So effectively just over 12 years, coming up for nearly 13 years. And this was all predicated by my previous role, and I was a landlord, had a bad experience with a letting agent, and then I thought, do you know what? I can do something better when it comes to property reports. And it's just springboarded from there, set up my own inventory company. And then I started working with InventoryBase, and then gradually started doing more and more work with them, to the point where they said, look, you know, just come in, let's do some bits and pieces around training, academy, and also making sure that, you know, we're giving the customers the best opportunity to really deliver exceptional services using our software. So that's kind of like where my involvement and how I've evolved within the industry.
And so over a decade, you've seen it all. So you've done the landlord thing, you've experienced the agent service, and you've gone into the supplier space and looking at, you know, really the bits and pieces of that parcel. So for those of you who don't already know Siân, what rock have you been under? But you now know lots of knowledge, lots of experience. So without further ado, let's get on to today's topic. Which is one that you suggested, but it resonated with me straight away because it aligns with a lot of conversations that I'm having with agents and suppliers and thought leaders within the industry about where we're going, where tech is going. So, so the question was, can PropTech make agents more human? Kick me off, Siân. Let's get this one going.
So, okay, try and explain this for you. So for me, there's like almost like a big misconception. People hear tech, and first of all, the first thing I often see is eyes rolling. It's like, oh, another buzzword, you know, especially when it comes to PropTech. What the hell's that? You know, but they often assume it replaces human interaction, because as soon as you hear tech, you think, oh, right, okay, so everything's going to get automated, everything's going to happen, I don't need to do anything. So there's no person sat behind the desk, there's no human element controlling it. But for me, I see it differently. For me, PropTech is about freeing agents up, you know, taking away the admin heavy work, the transactional side, which we know everything is about compliance now. So there's paperwork, there's trails, there's processes, all of that takes admin time. And what that PropTech does then is it basically frees those agents up to be the relationship managers, build those trusts and create those services, because I buy from people I like. I want to talk to people. If I have a good experience in a shop, if it's Marks and Spencer's cafe, if it's you know, down the road in Subway, or if it's at my local independent, and you know, I like to have that interaction. I like to feel that, you know, I am being given a service, not because they're there to sell, but because, you know, they want a relationship with me. They want me to come back, and I want to come back as well. And I think PropTech for me can enable that by taking all the stuff that, you know, is like I said, is admin heavy, is process driven, that really could be working in the background and getting on with the job, so that the people at the front end, the ones at the desk, when I walk into an agent, you know, I can talk to them. They had the time to talk to me, and they also understand where I'm coming from, but they also have the ability to steer me in the right direction because they've got the right mechanisms behind them and their processes.
Look, I think we've all seen those comments. We've all had those responses in demos, you know, and we've seen it in comments online. This kind of mantra, this badge that us agents like to wear on our chest of people buy from people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the answer you just gave, there was a bit in there that was super relevant, and it's not that people just buy from people, it's people buy from people they like,
yeah,
or people buy from people that make them feel special. And I think that's the important difference, right? And look, let's not beat around the bush, because I didn't do this, I didn't start this series for us to pussyfoot around some of the more difficult subjects. You know, it is well known, the reputation that estate agents have in this country. And there are a lot of us who started our agency businesses and started our agency journey. And you know, likewise, in a similar vein, yours kind of went into the supplier space. But we did it because we know that all too often that reputation is actually justified and warranted, right?
Yeah.
We know about, you know, we all know the stats, those 50% of property inquiries that go unanswered, those tenants who report a maintenance issue and don't hear back for a week, if they hear back at all. So yes, whilst I kind of get that the people and personality is absolutely part of agency, and yes, sometimes getting that deal across the line, getting that engagement, getting that client, securing that sale, whatever it is contingent on the person within that process. But it is on the person in that process delivering, whether that is personality, their knowledge, the experience they give the client, or how they make them feel, or a combination of all of those. And so whilst there are some agents who legitimately can kind of stand chest proud and go, you know, yeah, we can do some tech, but my God, I've got a team that deliver. I think the honest answer is that for a lot of agents, that's not necessarily true, at least not true about the whole team. And so...
No. And I'd agree. I mean, you know, sorry, I'm going to butt in there because I'm like chomping at the bit to kind of like, you know, give you a real world example. That is exactly how I felt as a landlord when I got taken on by an agent, when I rented out my property. And to be honest with you, I got a great service initially. You know, everything was about me. I was made to feel that special person. I was made to feel listened to, and we'll take care of it. I felt, do you know what? You are going to protect me. You're going to protect my asset. The moment I signed on that dotted line, it's like someone changed the temperature in the room. It was almost like, we got you, you signed, you're in contract.
Right?
Yeah, whatever you want to do now doesn't make any difference. Whatever you need from us doesn't make any difference. You know, I had calls upon calls where things weren't done. I had inspections that weren't carried through. And then I got a property back where I'm scooping the dog hair out of the oven. And all the agent was worried about or concerned about or wanted from me was whether they could take the fridge freezer for their brother because it'd been left in the middle of the sitting room. And I'm just looking at them going, are you being serious? And they were. And I said, what about the deposit? What about checkout?
I've got to be honest, I really thought you were going to be like, all they were interested about was letting it again. Because again, No. This is what really kickstart my journey, in as much as that all they were interested in is whether they could have this damn bloody fridge freezer, which, by the way, was absolutely filthy, and I don't even know why they wanted it. And the fact is that when I said to him, oh, you know, what about deposit? We're giving it back. I said, you what?
oh, we're giving it back, well, we just thought it'd be easier. I said, well, easier for who? Why did you do it? I said, tell me you did a checker. No, we didn't do it. And I'm like, and I am not a shrinking violet. I think you know me by now. I don't do that. Shrink violet.
There's a reason why I've asked you on for the first chat.
I have had some experiences in my previous years, in my previous role, that would make your hair curl or grow, depending.
Don't know, you used to work in prisons, right?
Yes, for 21 years. So I've seen it all, and I mean all.
You're nothing. This lady has handled some of the most dangerous citizens in society.
Yeah, and there's not much that will faze me, in all honesty, but I must admit, I saw my home, I saw the state, I saw the hair in the oven. I had to sit down. I've dealt with dirty protests before, and that was more preferable to what I found in my home when I took it back. And that is what started on my journey. So initially, I got a great service. I felt special, but then everything else unraveled afterwards.
But I think there's something really interesting also that you said in that sentence. Again, this isn't really relevant to the subject, but in my home. And I think this is also a really relevant thing, is that right or wrong, a lot of landlords are kind of accidental landlords. They didn't set out on a mission to become a landlord through circumstance, chance, inheritance, whatever it is. They end up being a landlord. They end up renting out a former home, whether that's something they've inherited or something they lived in. And I think the interesting thing is, it's very easy as agents to be like, oh yeah, but you're renting it out now. It's not your home anymore. So just don't be so emotional about it. And that's not dismissing the validity of what you said about badly your property was handled. But I think what a lot of agents miss in the letting agent landlord game is that they approach it of, this is kind of a B2B, business to business, landlord's a business, we're a business, it can all be business. Yeah. And I think the reality is, I know within our letting agency base, a huge proportion of the properties that we manage are clients' former homes. Yeah. And they are incredibly invested, actually less in the returns, but more in who's going to live in there and how are they going to look after it. Because actually it's that emotional connection. And so I think, talking about the personal, talking about the people, talking about the human touch, what landlords want, like you in your circumstance, they want to feel that your agent cares, not just about you, but about your property, and understands the connection and doesn't just dismiss that as, oh yeah, but you're a landlord now, shit happens.
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah, you're almost expected just to put up with what goes wrong. And I mean, and to be fair, it taught me a very valuable lesson. It taught me, one, pick my agents better, look at them, look at what redress schemes they are with, find out more about their reputations. Don't just go on one person's say so, really do your due diligence. Because I've dealt with other agents since then and had a much better experience where they have been interested, and as soon as I've signed on the dotted line, all of a sudden there they are, they're telling me how things are going, what's going on, upkeep, and can we do this, can we do that?
I think that's the trouble. Again, a lot of culture in agents, you've got people doing very specific roles. Mm-hmm. Quite often the person going out doing the valuation will be a very quite enigmatic, very personable, quite often a very engaged member of the community. They're kind of, the flagship member of staff that everyone knows. But all too often, their job is just do the evaluation, get the instruction. And
then pass it on to the next person.
It's credible care. But as far as that person is concerned, the moment they've signed on the dotted line, they've done their job.
Yeah.
And so you then hand it over to a person, a team of people, a group of people who now have to support that person, but have no relationship with that person. So, again, as companies, we need to be looking at what is that process. Really, the signing is the start of your relationship, right?
Yeah.
That's not where you've won. That's where you've gone, thank Christ, you've trusted me enough to sign on the dotted line. But you haven't done anything yet.
There's a whole proof of concept, isn't it, to happen?
And told people quite often what they want to hear. Hopefully extol some true virtues about what you're doing. But really, you know, when that terms and conditions get signed, that's when it starts. That's not job done. And I think, you know, again, you touched on it. So look, let's bring this back to tech. Let's bring this back to tech a bit. So let's talk about how the high street is changing over the last 20 years, because I think this is really relevant, right? Agents are fundamentally primarily on high streets. Up and down the country, they are part of that high street experience. And so what have you noticed changing on high streets over the last 20 years?
Well, certainly from a contraction point of view, we are seeing the high streets kind of falling apart, the bigger players coming out of it because they are going online. So that is sometimes where people say, oh, well, PropTech's not such a good thing because it's enabling that kind of transition, you know, going from something that's more a personal, more one-to-one kind of experience going into a shop, as opposed to going online and going on an app. And we've talked about it before, you know, now you can just go onto Amazon, pick what you want, and it'll be there within the day or the next day. It's really quick. So PropTech and tech itself helps all of that kind of journey. But what that does is that's shipping that kind of one-to-one interaction and service delivery on the high street away from people. So it means they're not less likely to go there. And if they're not going there, and agents predominantly and still are operating on the high street, then it almost becomes like a ghost town. You almost like got a street of agents and then nothing else, which is why you're seeing some agents that are doing that whole change of culture in as making it more of a coffee shop experience, more of a lounge experience to come in and talk to their teams and be able to have that kind of one-to-one experience, but in a more relaxed atmosphere. But the problem I think we're certainly with the high streets is because there's more pulling out and there's not so much going in, and sometimes what is going in replace of is very much pop-ups, you know, nothing that's stable, nothing that's really going to help with the community or help with just the general consensus of how that potential area works, and it pulls away from that.
You've touched on a few things there, you know, Amazon. I think another thing we touched on briefly before we jumped in front of the cameras, the total transformation of banks, right? You know, you look at the banking experience 20 years ago, and it was bollocks, let's be honest. You know, you'd go in, you'd queue up, half the time the staff weren't there. If you have to go on your lunch break, which a lot of people at work would have to do, huzzah, you're in a queue of 100 people and you just want to deposit a frigging check or whatever it is. So, you know, I think you've touched on some of the kind of dangers or some of the less desirable changes at the high street. But what we're really looking at in that, right, is we're looking at what the driver of that is. And the driver of that, the likes of Amazon, digital bank transformation, all this sort of stuff. This hasn't come off some hype. This hasn't come off people being like, "Oh, tech sounds fun, let's do tech." These things have done well, right? Because they've genuinely solved our frustrations as consumers, as customers, right?
Yeah, because they're enabling what we want.
We all got fed up ordering that thing online. You know, we all remember when you used to order stuff and it would say, please allow 4 to 6 weeks for delivery. You know, we all remember that fun stuff. You know, we've just touched on the banking experience. You're going to your branch, which was horrendous. And literally now on your app, you run everything. If you're with one of the really front edge ones, it can help you save for stuff. It can help you analyze what you're spending money on. You got a bank to check. You just take a photo of it, you know, and those have solved genuine frustrations, and they have taken out things that, but also from a bank's perspective, right?
Yeah.
Having 5 people on a salary sat at a till going, thank you for your check. Typing the data in, thank you for your check. You know, thank you for your bag of coins that you need to change in. They put it through the machine. You know, where was the value in that? You know, that teller job, right? They don't add any value. It's succeed or fail. They either successfully bank the check or they don't. They either count the coins right or they don't. And I think if we bring that, you know, if we bring that that viewpoint into agency, there's still far too many agents who are stuck with, oh, this is how we've always done it. There are still far too many agents obsessed with a role that people, and I particularly within administrative roles within agency. Because let's make no mistake, right? If you're onboarding a landlord, if you're progressing a tenancy application, if you're resolving a maintenance issue, if you're concluding a tenancy, whatever it is, most agents, if they're well run, whether it's a workflow in their CRM or whether it's a sheet with ticks that they do on their paper file, the bottom line is it is right. Now I do this. Now I do that. Now I upload this. Now I do that. And 95% of those tasks that they're doing, the person adds no value. They don't, they either do the job or they don't. They either complete that tick or they don't. They're not responsible for the information in there. Like, let's take a tenancy application for example. The administrator is not responsible for that tenant passing their references, right? They're just responsible for making sure those references
just for the process
as quickly as possible, and that you get the report back as quickly as possible, and then you make a decision and update all parties. So when we look at, let's take a lettings administrator, and when you look at what they spend the vast majority of their day doing, as a boss, whether you're a manager or an owner, if you're genuinely honest with yourself, what is the value that person brings to your business as a human being? And I would argue that in a lot of businesses, that they dehumanize the humans within their business with process, with steps, with manual tasks that need to be done. But like, as we touched on, you can't do brilliantly or mediocre. You either do it or you don't. You know, it's succeed or fail. You're adding no intrinsic value.
Hang on.
And where
I've got to give James his coat.
loud, you know, but the snippets of value that administrator adds in that process is the human interactions, is those moments where they jump on the phone to Sarah and go, look, Sarah, really sorry, you know, we're almost at getting this tenancy over the line, but, you know, we're just desperate for your landlord reference. You know, is there anything I can do to help? You know, sometimes taking this approach to your landlord can help you get an answer, you know, and a little bit of banter, a little bit of engagement, but those snippets are few and far between. And I think when we talk about how PropTech can make agents more human, you and I both know tech doesn't make humans more human, but what we are talking about is freeing people up to leverage their humanity, to build.
And isn't that what we need to do? We need to create balance, and that's the thing. We don't have balance. It seems to be either one way or the other, not so much in the middle. But there's a mistake, I think, in thinking about tech is replacing interaction. To me, it's about enhancing it. It's not eliminating that personal touch. It's not about, you know, maneuvering away, you know, to make everything automated. So you literally, to be honest with you, could just have someone there like now in the screen talking to you, working from home, and you wouldn't even need anybody in the office. But then you lose that human touch side of things. And just quickly going back to talking about banking, you know, where the benefits of the tellers are. One of the key issues that banks, and well, not banks, rather people are finding, is that banks used to be a place where they used to go to feel comfortable, feel safe having that transaction. A lot of people online don't feel safe. They don't feel that the environment is safe enough for them to be able to do that. So they want that to go to the bank. But also, I'm aware, especially on the older people, older sector, that they like to go there because sometimes it's the only interaction they get, but also because that they actually ask them, how are you doing? You know, how's your day going? Or like I know someone the other day went in to take quite a big amount of money out of their bank account. Is everything okay? You know, why are you doing that? You know, just making sure that there's no pressure or anything along those lines. Whereas if you do it on a banking app, it's done, isn't it? It's gone. That you get a little pop-up warning going, are you sure that's the right bank account? Are you sure that is not a spurious account? And are you sure you want to do that? Yep, fine, go, off you go. Whereas someone, when you're in the bank, will give you that kind of interaction to go, are you okay? Is this what you want? What are you using it for? What are you going to do? And it gives you that a benefit to be able to talk to that person and to feel that, you know, they've got your interest at heart more than anything else.
I think what is so beautiful about that example that you've just given is, how do you assign value to the human interactions? right?
Exactly.
So is value just monetary? Is value just, I don't want them talking to them if it's not going to lift the margin, increase our profit, generate extra revenue? Or is it about becoming that fabric of your community? Is it about being that kind of fifth emergency service for certain elements within your community that feel disenfranchised, that feel left behind because they're not, you know, they're a generation that didn't grow up on digital devices? I also don't think, you know, some people write off older people being unable to use digital because it's not their thing. And yet when you see the demographics of people on Facebook, and actually digital banking is a perfect example, actually the sways of that generation who've adopted that stuff. But
My mum had AirPods before me. Sorry,
Yeah.
I'm interrupting. My mum had AirPods before me. She's got more tech in her home than I have.
Yeah,
And,
but
you know,
it's not a beautiful thing. You know, you talked on earlier about, you know, agents need to start rethinking about what their spaces are. People don't, you know, I talk to agents all the time, and in a lot of places, no one walks in anymore to ask about property. You know, they don't ask to see what you've got in your books.
no, because they can go straightly online and it's there.
Right. They can go and see, they can jump on the property portals, you know, they can jump on social media. And a lot of people now also, they want that digital information first before they even want to start a human interaction. So I think you're absolutely right. Agents need to be asking massively, what is that shop space now? Because loads of people sat on desks with a whiteboard with deals on and a ton of photo cards, property particulars in the window. You know,
It doesn't cut it anymore. It doesn't cut it anymore. I want an experience when I go in there. I want.
Why do you want to shop there if people aren't walking in the door?
Yeah.
You know, and if you're not having valuable engagements, because quite frankly, if the shop's not delivering what a shop should, which is putting you in that high street, engaging with people on foot, why the hell are you there? Go and sit in an office. Let your staff sit in a really nice office where they don't get disturbed by people looking in windows and wandering in for a random conversation that you don't want, or fully embrace that. Transform what your office is. Like you said, turn it into a living room, turn it into a coffee shop, turn it into a place where, like you said, with the bank, people can just step inside and feel safe.
Yeah, I mean, buying and selling property, you know, when you're lettings or whether you're selling property, a mixture of both, it's emotional. And people, when they're emotional, like to talk to other people, you know, to be able to soundboard, ask questions, feel comfortable, feel that they can, you know, that when they're being taken through the process, that agent, that person is there with them every step of the way. And because then that way, then you feel that they're invested, you're invested, and you each then work together. Whereas sometimes if they're too busy and they're having to do so many different things, and there's calls coming in and there's other work to be done and there's viewings to be done and there's pipelines to and targets to be met, all of that is then encroaching on that emotional time, that ability to connect. So that is where PropTech, you know, going back to our original conversation or starter, is about how it can make it human, because it can take all of that away and give them back that time. So like you and I, we can talk together. Yes, we're using tech to be able to do that because I'm here in Portsmouth, you're there in London, but we can still have that connection because we can sit, we can stop, we can talk, we can interact without the complications of anything else disturbing us. And I think that's where, certainly for me, PropTech can make agents more human because it gives them back that time. It gives them balance, it gives them choice, and also about giving them the right kind of data so that they can then use that to reassure that person, maybe not quite sure, like you said, accidental landlord, never been here before, never experienced before, doesn't really know the mechanisms, the rules, the legislations and everything else, and they're looking to you going, you know, please, Mr. or Mrs. or agent, help me, show me what I need to do.
Right? When was the last time you fell in love with a business because they did the bare minimum of what you expected them to do? You know, when you go into a restaurant, you know, and they manage to put a plate of food and a drink on your table of some description, you know, you don't walk out the door going, well, you know, I ordered steak and chips, but, you know, that cold fish and rice was, you know, I mean, it was food. You know,
You wouldn't do it.
not going, you know, job done. It is, how's the food look? Is it well prepared? Is it flavoursome? You know, what does the restaurant feel like when you walk in? How does your server make you feel, not just when you arrive, but throughout that journey? Does your does your custom feel valued? Are you made to feel special? And that applies whether you walk into a Greasy Spoon and you get that fun banter and the hey, you know, or you know, you're going to the Ivy and being all swanky pants. It doesn't really matter. And again, that's why we have different brands, right? So it is all about these soft skills. You know, no landlord is going to fall in love with you because you gave them the gas safety certificate you're legally obligated to organise for them. No landlord is going to fall in love with you because, well done, you organised an inventory. Bravo. You know,
it's seen as that's your job, isn't it?
That your tenancy agreement is legally compliant. No shit, Sherlock. It absolutely should be. So what's going to make your landlords fall in love with you? What's going to make your tenants fall in love with you and your properties and stay? Because, you know, and we're not going to touch on this now because we've got about 10 minutes, so we're definitely not going to open up the can of the Renters' Rights Bill. But we're moving into this increasingly, and I feel quite rightly so, tenant-centric landscape where tenants are going to have a lot more control and a lot more say, and rightly so, won't be able to be fobbed off. I hope over time there will be some strengthens to strengthen the landlord position. But like I said, we're not getting dragged down the Renters' Rights Bill. But we've got 10 minutes left. So what I do want to make sure that we bring into this conversation, because we've talked about PropTech, and again, we touched on this before we started talking on camera, AI. So in my mind, when we talk about PropTech, AI is now part of that ecosystem. You know, there's a lot of talk about AI, but I think we're going to see AI talked about potentially less because it's just going to be expected. If you're not a business, and particularly if you're a tech business that isn't looking to leverage the capabilities that delivers, and again, this all trickles back to how we free staff up to deliver that human side, but also, you know, let's look at the failings. So let's look at failings, maybe a strong word, but let's look at the elements where we get it wrong. Now, you guys know depository, we do tenancy conclusions, very stressful, very emotional, often very strongly held opposing opinions about things. And whilst we are trying to remove the emotion from that, we now pull across a lot of data. We've now processed over 60,000 tenancy conclusions, and we are now starting to see what good negotiation looks like.
Yeah, because you've got trends, haven't you? You've got data to be able to work out what that trend looks like and be able to then delve into that data to be able to then see, okay, where does it come from? And also then kind of say, where is it going? You know, where's the next steps and what do I need to do with it?
So we've got a couple of really interesting data sets. We've got the one we always shout about, which is time to close. All right, but I'm not gonna focus on that one because I think actually for agents, I think the other report that is far more interesting is claim versus deductions. And what the report is, what an agent or landlord proposes to be deducted from a deposit versus what is agreed. And that is a fascinating statistic. We report on it as a percentage. And where we see the top performing agents, and these are agents that we know deliver a personable service, their average is over 90%.
Yeah. Why is that? Why is it? What is it they're doing to get that to that point? Because at the end of the day, nothing should really get to dispute if you're able to talk, and you're only able to talk if you're being reasonable, sensible, and you're able to empathize and take that other person's viewpoint and then mash it with your own and come to a reasonable agreement. And that is personality. That's a human connection that does that.
But we know, right? We see the opposite end in our platform. We see the users. It's not so much companies. It will typically be users or groups of users, depending on the size of agency, where we're seeing not 90 plus, not even 80 plus, we're seeing 60, 50%, you know, those kind of stats. And the fascinating thing is, you know, talking about how do we make more human, when we then drill down to that, when we look at how those are negotiated, you've got the top performers who not only are saying, look, do see clause this, here's the checkout report, here's the check-in report, here are the photos, here's the invoice. They're not just doing what I consider the bare minimum of substantiated their claim. But when they make a proposal and the tenant comes back going, oh, well, I'd like to see this document, please. And can you give me a bit more explanation how you've arrived at X, Y, Z? And there was also this issue. How is this not relevant to that? The good negotiators are going back and addressing those points. Here's the document you asked for. Or, I can't give you that document, but here's why.
Yeah. Explanations, advice, guidance, and not just trying to push it to one side.
The X, Y, Z. Now, the performers that we see at 50, 60%, guess what their responses are? See last response.
Yeah. Go look at your email. See the email thread.
Or see checkout report.
Yeah.
Now, I would argue, where's the human in that?
Because no, and exactly that. It's not.
There's no empathy. There's no engagement. And so, our first AI iteration, we're looking, and for that reason, is in the negotiation part. And look, some of that, I'm not attacking property managers. Dear God, it's the world I live in. A lot of the time, it's because those property managers are stretched beyond belief. They are running a larger portfolio than they really should be. They might be covering for people being sick, on holiday. And look, and we also all have our crap days. And we also know in lettings, and this may change the rights bill, we've got that busy summer period that for most letting agents is bonkers. And so in that 2-month window, everyone is at maximum capacity and stretched to the gills. So I'm not saying that these agents are being lazy or doing it out of malicious intent, but the fact is, for whatever reason, those are the responses we're getting, and rightly so. Tenants are coming back going, what the hell?
And I think
you're not engaging, you're not negotiating with me. This isn't a discussion. I've not been unreasonable.
No, you're just telling me.
Shut up and go back to what I said before. And so AI is really interesting. We talk about the human side and we've been playing around with AI like so many of us as tech companies and businesses for over a year now. And the thing that has always struck me is how human AI can appear. For those time sensitive PMs who are just rushing off I've already explained everything, we can actually give that person the same response. But when you let AI write that response for you, that response in actual fact is, hey, we're not budging, mate. That property is filthy, we've given you evidence and you owe the bloody bill. But that saying that or dismissing a tenant's response isn't going to get us there. Where AI can at the click of a whistle, because they're not fed up with that tenant, they've not spent a year being dragged through the dirt by that tenant who's always awkward about every little thing or whatever it is. And AI will come up with this beautiful, whilst we appreciate this, and we do realize that you said that, it can give the impression. And sometimes that is all a person needs. They just need to be given the impression that they have been listened to more, that they have been heard, even if their point is refuted. And I think where we're really excited, because again, when we look at what happens in there, and the results are very much driven by how primarily tenants in this situation are made to feel. We believe that by plugging in AI and giving our users tools to generate responses that they can then edit and tweak, we're expecting that 50, 60, 70% crew to within 3 months be in the 80, 90% crew.
Yeah, because you're giving them the tools to be able to have like I said, that time, that human interaction. And like you said, with AI as it stands at the moment, it's all about the prompts you put in. It's all about the information you give it in order to then say, what's my tone of voice? How do I want to deal with this? Do I want to be empathetic? Do I want to be maybe a little bit more authoritarian over it because of maybe the type of conversation or the type of person? Because we all interact differently, and how I'm talking to you would be different to how I'll talk to someone else, depending on who it is. I've had a conversation this morning where I've imparted something that the person doesn't necessarily agree with, but they understand my point of view. But I took the time to sit there and discuss it. And that's the thing, it's that time element. And that's where, again, AI, PropTech, that whole process really comes into it. So it basically takes the agent away from being a salesperson, like I said, get them across the dotted line, sign there, and there you go, but more of an advisor. And that's like a tech-enabled advisor, someone who understands that basis, but is still looking to that human interaction. But it also allows them to be that strategist, to be able to then work out, well, what do I need to do? What tools do I need to bring in to be able to do that job properly, to the standard that I want, and also my client wants from me. And at the very end of it, be that human connection and be able to keep that human connection. Because it's not about just going, hi, how are you, being nice, smiling and everything else, and that's it. It's literally all the way through that journey, because then that's how you get that word of mouth reviews. That's how people then will come to you and say, is Depository a great place to get my checkouts sorted out, my end of tenancy? Yes. Is InventoryBase a great place to be able to capture that information and be efficient and get that information and interacting and integrate with Depository? Yes, because you're talking, they're able to resonate with you, but you can't do that if you don't have the time. And I think that is where your 50-60% of people are at the moment. They're very time poor. It's not like you said, it's not that they don't want to, it's just they don't have the time. And especially when you're a smaller agent and a smaller company, and the same with the suppliers as well, you're spending so much time trying to drive the pipeline, trying to drive, the numbers through and get the leads and get the revenue in. You don't have time for that interaction because you're too busy just trying to, get to a stage where actually from a financial point of view, you're stable, you're hopefully buoyant, and then be able to move forward. But by that time, you've already alienated a lot of your clientele because you haven't spent the time with them. So I think certainly from a tech point of view, we can give back the time to those individuals, to those agents, to allow them to talk, be part of the conversation, but not just now, but all the way through the tenancy and beyond, because word of mouth reviews are worth their weight in gold. You and I, we've done really well at the Esters over the years, but that's because we got good service. We give good service and we get great reviews because people like what we are not selling to them, but how we treat them and how we interact with them. And that is where we can take the agent from being, just someone who's using PropTech, but someone who can actually become more human, because the fact is they've got that time to be able to do that. And
what a brilliant point to end on. I think that's we've got some really lovely points in there. We are going to have to wrap this up. We've run out of time. That 45 minutes or so as usual.
Goes quick, doesn't it?
So look, to the agents out there that are going to either read this as a blog or watch these as a videos, we want to hear your thoughts. Engage with us on the content, engage with us directly. Do you agree? Do you disagree? I mean, I'd love to hear from agents who have successfully leveraged tech in any part of your business. And look, we focus on lettings because that's our world, but this is agency. So it can be sales, it can be commercial, it can be auctions, whatever. I'd love to hear stories about how plugging in a piece of tech has made your business more human or better at human interactions. But look, if you disagree, it's all part of the conversation. We also want to hear why we're talking bollocks. Come on, prove us wrong. I'd love to hear it. But otherwise, Siân, thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
I'll see you soon. If you're not already familiar with InventoryBase, do check it out. Inventory software, inspections, all sorts of other cool stuff. I think we've done drone reports through you guys and all sorts of funky things. So yeah, If you're not familiar, go and check it out. And they are one of an amazing portfolio of partners that we have at the Depository. And yeah, darling, thanks for your time. And
thank you.
Soon.
Yeah, we'll do. See you soon. Thank you.
Bye.